This video has been sponsored and approved by Ridge.
Do you remember the good old days? Before everyone and their mum had a BOGO hoodie. Back when rappers used to say swag unironically.
My new name is Swag. Swag. Swag.
And back when Golf Wang was just a nickname for Tiger Woods. Well, just like my own collection of dreadful Supreme clothes, those days are long gone. Odd Future, which is short for Odd Future Wolfgang Kill Them All, which itself is short for Odd Future Wolfgang Kill Them All, Don't Give a F, Litter Life, Bacon Boys, Loiter Squad, Butt Fuck, bitch, was founded in 2007 by a handful of OG members. Initially being Tyler the Creator, Hodgy Beats, Left Brain, Casey Veggies, Jasper Dolphin, Matt Martians, and Pyramid Ritra. They would begin recording music in a spot affectionately known as The Trap, but really just a room belonging to emerging members Sid the Kid and Taco at their place in South Central LA. And the result of these recording sessions were the early projects of subgroup within the main group, the duo containing Tyler and Jasper called I Smell Panties, dropping their I Smell Panties EP in 2008. This was followed by the initial group mixtape, The Odd Future Tape, an early amateur attempt at this crew trying to find their sound, which I would personally say isn't that listen-worthy today, but was indeed the monumental first step towards the enormously successful punk rap movement that they would soon be rubbing in everybody's stupid faces. Hodgy Beats actually earned the accolade of the first Odd Future member to drop a solo project under the umbrella of the group in the form of his The Denner tape in 2009, although we all know that Tyler the Creator would go on to be the most prolific member of Odd Future, and eventually his wrist would completely give way after years of carrying this crew. And we can kind of observe that some of the biggest jumps in interest for the crew would often coincide with solo releases from their most prolific member. And when Tyler dropped his first self-produced mixtape / album Bastard on Christmas Day 2009, it immediately brought in critical acclaim, and along with it, plenty of new attention for the group, with fans beginning to ravenously idolize Odd Future like some kind of modern-day Wu-Tang Clan, who instead had swapped their kung fu for streetwear and skateboards.
And now a word from our sponsor.
I love Chris Rich.
I just got a brand new Ridge. Put it in my pocket and it don't stick out. Threw my old wallet in a bin. All my cards and my money in a Ridge right now. I ain't gotta worry about a thing, cause my pocket's riding clean. I bought a Ridge, that's how it.
Other international charts. That album featured his game-changing single Yonkers.
Go show Ridge some love. I love my Ridge, it's fire.
And of course, with new attention focused on the group, we saw new recruits. And at a certain point between 2009 and 2010, many other members joined the crew. Domo Genesis, Earl Sweatshirt, Mike G, Frank Ocean, along with so many others that joined at various points your boy is genuinely struggling to keep track. So for the record, Odd Future stands, please don't kill me for missing out on your favourite obscure OF member that once carried a bag of weed for Jasper in 2013, because for the purposes of this video, we are generally going to be focusing on the core musical members of Odd Future, as well as any other extended crew members who have at least had a significant impact on the overall Odd Future lore. Anywho, from here, all of the group members upped their independent musical output. Their next crew mixtape, Radical, dropped in May 2010, along with members Hodgy Beats and Left Brain forming the duo Mellow Hype and dropping their project Black and White. And as time went on, Tyler would eventually sign his one-album deal with XL Recordings to drop his Goblin album. That was an overwhelming success, landing at number 5 on Billboard, selling 45,000 copies first week, and landing on 10 other international charts. That album featured his game-changing single Yonkers, a track that won him the Best New Artist at the 2011 VMAs, where he collected his award surrounded by his gang of odd goons.
Tyler the Creator.
I'm excited as now, yo. I wanted this since I was 9. I'm about to cry.
But of course, who could forget the follow-up to Yonkers She, which of course featured your boy Frank Ocean, who himself was also positively popping at this point, fresh off the release of his successful independent mixtape Nostalgia Ultra. But once again, off the back of the mainstream success of Tyler's incredible solo projects, contributed to yet another massive boost in mainstream attention for the whole crew. And at the time, Tyler seemed to be making the effort to make sure that his crew members were not left behind. For example, taking Hodgy Beats along with him to perform Sandwiches on Jimmy Fallon,
performing the song Sandwiches with a little help from the Roots. Please welcome Tyler the Creator and Hodgy Beats from Odd Future!
And when I say Tyler was on Fallon, I mean he was literally on Fallon. And so after the earth-shattering success of yet another of Tyler's projects, it will be nothing but big corporate W's for the group as a whole. In April 2011, they signed their record deal with Red Distribution and Sony Music to start their own Odd Future label. And Odd Future Records would go on to release around 19 projects, mostly releases from the whole group, its independent members, subgroups and duos that had formed between them, as well as from Trash Talk, the hardcore band that they had signed to the label. Now, they'd actually released 2 albums under the imprint, 119 and No Peace, but notably Earl Sweatshirt and Frank Ocean did not sign to Odd Future Records. Likely the result of Frank Ocean having already signed a deal before he joined Odd Future, and, you know, Earl's mum being Earl's mum. Anywho, once the record label was up and poppin', Odd Future were in the position to secure multiple bags. Firstly, embarking on their lucrative Golf Wang tour, followed up by announcing that they were having their own TV show on Adult Swim called Loiter Squad, a show produced by Dick House, the company that made Jackass.
Warning! The stunts in this show is performed by a professional, so for your safety and the protection around you, don't do none of this at home.
Funnily enough, the guys actually described this show as some sort of hybrid mixture of Jackass and The Chappelle Show, which they originally wanted to call Blackass. And you can really tell, I mean, there's a lot of great sketches in there that are clearly inspired by Chappelle's Show and Jackass.
So Lionel has a speaker attached to his stomach, and we have the mic, we can say nasty stuff to people. And Bam's here.
In my opinion, some of the standouts are the E.T. sketch.
No cry. I got you. No cry. You in the system. No cry.
And of course, the episode where the Bloods appear on Deadliest Warrior. I wish I came up with that shit.
A Blood, born on the streets doing anything to make that money. The Blood wears a red flannel, red bandana. It also has various markings and tattoos such as a 5-pointed star and a dog's paw burned into the arm with a cigarette.
But the group wasn't done winning yet, because from there they would drop the Odd Future album, 12 Odd Future Songs, which contained, you guessed it, 13 Odd Future songs. These guys are some real goosters and gaffsters, aren't they? That project was actually made up of 10 previously released tracks from members of the crew, and notably 3 new tracks from the internal collective called The Internet, which included Odd Future members Sid the Kid, Matt Martians, Steve Lacy, Christopher Smith, and Patrick Page. And then in March 2012, the crew reached crescendo point, releasing the Odd Future Tape Volume 2. This was their debut studio album, and to date is still the only studio album released by the entire crew. It hit number 5 on Billboard and sold 40k in the first week. And in another iconic moment that same day, Earl Sweatshirt was finally able to perform on stage with the Odd Future crew, appearing at a high-energy show at the Hammerstein Ballroom. And in my opinion, it was this that was the high watermark for the Odd Future crew as a whole. Although it would be another 3 years before Tyler would confirm that Odd Future was no more on Twitter, Earl would even corroborate this with some salty tweets of his own, with Tyler coming out later to downplay any suggestion of a beef between him and Earl, as well as downplaying his earlier message, suggesting that the crew being over was a big elephant in the room that nobody had addressed up until that point. Tyler actually discussed the group's disbandment as being amicable when he linked up for a chat with Old Man and Hot 97 DJ Ebro, suggesting that his tweets had been blown out of proportion.
We haven't really did anything together in a while, and everyone's just, you know,
but still, you guys
doing
are
their own
everyone's
thing.
Cool though.
And
but you're all with each other in different factions.
Been like that, but it's still, you know, we still support. We're still friends. I talked to Sid the other day, like, and it's no different from what it was 3 years ago. Everyone's doing their own thing. It's just like we from the same like shit, you know?
Saying that this breakup really just meant they don't hang every day like they used to, and suggesting that as individuals, there was no bad blood between them as speculation had perceived. And so while there was no official bad blood, beef, or breakup, it was clear from this point that it was truly every man for himself. And so from there, each of the crew's respective members focused their efforts on whatever their chosen area of expertise was with mixed results. And by March the 29th, 2018, Tyler would drop the song Okra, which included the lyrics "Golf be the set, no more OF." Once again, cementing his resolve that the crew was officially over and that at least he had fully moved forward. And while for a brief moment a reunion would take place at the final Low End Theory show in Los Angeles in August 2018, the crew as a connected unit would remain firmly in the ground, i.e. dead. And so the important question that's been on the tongue of every OF fan with a closet full of pink donut adorned clothes they haven't worn in years, where are they all now? Well, of course, being the most high profile and essentially the main face of Odd Future, Tyler put his initial clout gained from the group to good use in his solo career, but he was also a smart hustler and continued to make moves beyond music. For example, leveraging the brand to start the Camp Flog Gnaw Music Festival, which has now been immortalized forever as the only place that Drake hates going more than the bedrooms of girls over 18. Tyler's next solo project, Wolf, landed at number 3 on the Billboard and sold close to 90k copies on its release. His third album, Cherry Bomb, landed at number 4, selling 50 58k, and in spite of being banned from the UK for a few years, his solo momentum would not relent, as his follow-up Flower Boy landed at number 2, selling 106k copies, and landing a nomination at the Grammys for Best Rap Album. But all of that was leading up to his legendary 5th album, Igor, debuting at number 1 and winning the Best Rap Album at the 62nd Grammy Awards, where he even took his mum and Jasper on stage.
And the Grammy goes to... LA Stand Up, Igor Tyler, the Creator.
That's my mom, if y'all wondering. All right, I gotta say my speech, dog. This is my day one, and I love this dude, man.
And let's not forget that the performance of this album also won him the award for Best DJ Khaled Agitator since United Airlines told him he'd have to start buying 2 seats. Hey, so that one's easy. If any of you Tyler stans want an entire in-depth story about Tyler, hit me on Instagram at TrapLawRoss and tell me what you want me to say about your boy. But basically the headline of this story is Tyler is straight winning. Now, Left Brain and Hodgy Beats actually met long before Odd Future was even a thing. Originally linking up to collaborate around 06-07, the duo Mellow Hype consisted of Left Brain, or Mellow, on the mic, with Hodgy Beats aka Hype on the production. They were actually both featured on the first 2 Odd Future mixtapes. As I mentioned, Hodgy dropped his first solo tape, The Denner Tape, in 2009, and then they would debut as a duo with Yellow White in February 2010. They were then featured alongside their homie and later crew member Domo Genesis, who had joined Odd Future around 2009 from being friends with Tyler, dropping his mixtape Rolling Papers in 2010, entirely produced by Tyler, Left Brain, and Sid the Kid. Meanwhile, Left and Hodgy then dropped their studio album as Mellow Hype, called Black and White, on October the 31st, 2010, but after Tyler's solo track Yonkers blew up, Mellow Hype as a duo begun to get way more mainstream attention from dedicated Odd Future fans. And so, capitalizing on that hype, they immediately re-released a remastered version of Black and White on Fat Possum Records, notably not Odd Future Records, but still landing in at Billboard at number 81, moving around 6,000 copies in the first week. They dropped a music video for their track 6-4, keeping the momentum going, and in August 2011, dropping the tracks 67 and 45 for an appropriately titled album called Numbers. I just want to know where that 6-9 at, baby. Anywho, Numbers dropped in 2012, and it had features from the likes of Frank Ocean, Mike G, and Earl Sweatshirt, and featured the single La Bonita. This was actually the same year that Hodgy dropped an untitled solo EP, capping off 2012 by releasing 7 tracks for 7 days, rather than an album, which would eventually form the basis of their Mellow Hype Week 7-track mixtape. Meanwhile, Domo Genesis had also been putting in work. His second mixtape, Under the Influence, dropped in September 2011 and was considered a big step up in his potential, landing him a feature from Wiz Khalifa the following year called Ground Up. Following that up with the awesome mixtape No Idols that he dropped with Alchemist. That featured the banger of a track Elimination Chamber, which had a verse from Action Bronson, my 4th favourite rapper of all time, and my 1st favourite fat rapper of all time. Sorry, Rose. But obviously all that hustle wasn't going unnoticed, as Hodgy and Left announced in 2013 that they would be starting a trio with Domo Genesis, a newly formed set called Mellow High, dropping a self-titled album together on October the 31st, 2013, that itself landed at number 89 on Billboard, and had appearances from Tyler, Currency, Smoke DZA, and Earl Sweatshirt. They followed that up with the free Mellow Hype mixtape Insert on July the 4th, 2014, and in 2015, Hodgy would drop another solo mixtape, The Denner Tape 2 with Don Cannon, before coming out rather abruptly to say that Mellow Hype would no longer exist. And unfortunately, after this, getting in a pretty embarrassing and awkward public altercation with Tyler. Now, Tyler actually got a bunch of the Odd Future gang back together at the 4th Camp Flog Gnaw Festival in 2015. Now, that lineup was set to include Hodgy, Domo Genesis, Left Brain, and Mike G, with Tyler notably not taking part with them because he already had his own solo set to worry about. And also with Earl Sweatshirt notably absent, since by this point he'd already made it clear his intentions to distance himself from the crew. But according to Tyler's Twitter, they were on good terms. Anyway, things didn't necessarily go to plan because Hodgy decided to use this opportunity, having literally been put onto a stage by Tyler, to diss Tyler for having not put him on. You know, even though the first big mainstream opportunity that Tyler had, he brought Hodgy along with him to perform on Fallon.
Tyler the Creator and Hodgy Beats.
But that's none of my business. So Hodgy was up on stage moaning about how he'd stayed broke through Odd Future's rise, and apparently he begun to get agitated when the other members decided to use that opportunity on stage to thank Tyler for the opportunity. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't actually find any footage of that incident having taken place, so I can appreciate that maybe to a certain degree that rant was blown a little bit out of proportion, but Tyler himself has corroborated that at this point he was at the side of the stage feeling kind of bummed about being dissed. And so following that, in a scene that was caught on camera, Tyler clapped back during his solo set, venting at Hodgy.
I put too many niggas on. I helped too many of my motherfucking friends out. And niggas gonna come foul? And you know who the fuck I'm talking about, nigga. And yes, it's getting real. I love you though.
But apparently by the next day, Hodgie hadn't quite worked out how much he was embarrassing himself by these comments, and he decided to keep the saltiness going on Twitter, saying that Tyler would be nowhere without Odd Future. I mean, I personally think that his talent definitely would have still risen to the top, because if that isn't true, Hodgie, you've released a lot of music, why aren't you as big as Tyler? And at this point, Hodgie had also been going off in Instagram comments on Tyler's account, apparently calling him a fraud.
I never seen him. And of course, you see how quiet that nigga Tyler be when I mention that nigga. Cause he already know he a fraud. Pussy ass nigga. I'm waiting for a nigga to respond so I can expose him just like Drake. You bitch, you. Haji, don't talk that shit. You gonna fuck your money up. Nigga, fuck money. He got white people on it. Straight up.
Talking all that shit. Finna get his ass cooked, nigga. The fuck?
But apparently not too long after this, Hodgie and Tyler did reconcile in a funny Instagram clip, which has actually since been deleted and I can't seem to find it anywhere. But apparently in the video, they kiss and make up and then for some reason start doing handstands. And of course, they did eventually reunite on stage alongside Earl and Sid the Kid for that final Low End Theory show in LA in 2018. But saltiness aside, it was good to see that Hodgie would at least make an effort to keep his solo career going. You know, rather than just complaining that somebody else hadn't done all the work for him. He dropped 2 more solo Hodgie mixtapes in 2016. They Watch In Lo-Fi Series 1 in February and Duka in August, which led up to his debut studio album Fireplace Not the Other Side in December of 2016. Funnily enough, actually being the last record to be released on the official Odd Future Records label, which is kind of ironic, right? Complaining about your crewmate not putting you on when you didn't manage to deliver a studio album for 6 years and then eventually did drop it on the label that he had hustled to set up. But anywho, that album didn't chart or make a huge amount of noise, but to his credit, it was decent and Hodgie did manage to land some big name features from the likes of Lil Wayne and Busta Rhymes, with the music video for his single from that album Glory actually being the last thing that he uploaded to his YouTube channel in February 2017. And that was actually the same month that he would reunite with Left Brain, announcing that they would be working on new music together in a teaser clip on Twitter, with their reunion seemingly pointing towards Left Brain's solo release, Mind Gone Volume 1. As of 2018, Hodgie was releasing music under the label Purate and appearing on the track Jesus is a Samurai, as well as featuring on the track Rachel Green by Ruben Young and starting a new duo with electro producer Alvin Risk. He dropped the song Open in September of 2018, and the last piece of music that he dropped publicly seemed to be the single track No Brainer in June 2019. And beyond that, there's pretty much very little to go on as to what he's up to today, other than his 4 cryptic Instagram posts or largely inactive and deleted Twitter account. Following that last release, Hodgie doesn't seem like he's still been musically active, but I hope wherever he is, he's doing well and looking after himself. Meanwhile, Domo Genesis continued on the solo grind, dropping his studio album Genesis in 2016. It had a lead single called Dapper featuring Anderson .Paak, not to be confused with my upcoming quarantine smash hit Fapper, and the second being Go Gas featuring Wiz Khalifa, Juicy J and Tyler the Creator, once again not to be confused with the chart wafting hit Go Gas by Lil Fart and Queef Daddy. Domo followed that solo release up with another mixtape called Red Corolla, his Aren't You Glad You're You mixtape in January 2018, the music video for Me Vs Me, an EP called Facade Records named after his imprint that he'd started, and a music video for the track Online in November 2018. Now the last track that he uploaded to YouTube was the February 2019 track Could This Be, but he is still active to this day, regularly tweeting and most recently promoting his Summer 09 freestyle, as well as keeping busy on Instagram where he recently announced that he's going to have his own weed strain. But of course we can't forget the final piece in the mellow hype puzzle. Left Brain continued dropping music, including Brain on Drugs with Jay Worthy in 2018. He dropped Mind Gone Volume 2, which featured the single and music video Fidget, which really stuck out to me because it just had this cool old vintage Benz van, which I felt like was such a pop-in but weird flex. Sadly, Left Brain stopped tweeting around 2014, but he's still active on IG to this day with a page that's mainly devoted to artwork. Now, one of the most impressive career jettisons for the crew is Jasper Dolphin. Always by Tyler's side, he is one of the most recognizable faces in the crew. He'd clearly proven himself as a charismatic screen presence during his time on Loiter Squad, and at that point it was obvious that he had the bug for the silver screen. For a brief period, he had his own show on the now defunct Golf Media app called Quality Time with Jasper. Hey, it beats Fallon. And more recently, as of 2019, he's got his own show on Viceland called Jasper and Errol's First Time.
It's gonna be the best thing in history of TV, honestly.
Today we're gonna have the Viceland employees try things for the first time, just like we did on our TV show, Jasper and Errol's First Time.
So yeah, they try things for the first time and it's pretty lit.
2 young chocolate-skinned men from LA, Jasper and Errol, try things for the first time.
Hell no!
And also, apparently as of this month, he's also doing the occasional gaming stream on Twitch. So shout out the Twitch gang, make sure you go and follow Jasper on there, twitch.tv/JasperOfTheWest. And while you're there, make sure you follow your boy me, twitch.tv/TraplawRoss. Who knows, maybe one day me and Jasper will link up on Twitch to wash some fools on GTA 5. I can only hope. Now, having joined the crew later than some of the founding members, around 2011, Lionel Boyce, or L-Boy, was a prominent cast member of the crew's show Loiter Squad. While his influence on the musical stylings of the crew was limited, he did at least provide a hilarious intro roasting the rest of the crew on the OF Tape Volume 2, as well as the L-Boy interlude on Domo Genesis Under the Influence album. But realistically, it seemed like Lionel's skills were more in the boardroom than the skateboard, with him apparently being the brains and corporate muscle behind various TV projects the crew were pushing for. As well as being in the cast, he'd also actually been a producer on Loiter Squad. He was also a co-creator and writer for the crew's animated show The Jellies, created with Tyler, that actually started out on their Golf Media app in 2015, eventually landing a full series on Adult Swim in 2017. The show itself featured some very Odd Future music, with Tyler, Lionel, and a select bunch of OF members on voice acting duties. Apparently that show itself landed a second season in 2019, in addition to the fact that in 2018 Lionel himself apparently landed another first look TV deal with Sony Pictures on an unnamed project with Tyler. And let's not forget the fact that also in 2019, Lionel was one of the executive producers on Jasper's Viceland show, which you might remember from a few minutes ago.
Seems like a bunch of bullshit that you guys have just let these two get away with, and I don't know why you guys let them do it.
You big dummy. So it's safe to say that your boy L-Boy surely had his business handled. Now, Young Veggies was always one of my favourite OF members back in the day, and for a period he had a pretty successful rap career outside of the group. He'd actually already started rapping before Odd Future was even a thing. At the ripe young age of 14, he'd already dropped a mixtape called Customized Greatly, a series title which he actually continued after Odd Future's formation and his early departure around 2009. He actually said that he left the group early because he had a different vision of where he wanted his rap career to go solo in the future. Guess he was looking for a future that wasn't odd? Anywho, following his departure, he dropped the 2010 mixtape Sleeping in Class that had early appearances from the likes of Kendrick Lamar, Mac Miller, and Dom Kennedy, as well as dropping his 2013 mixtape Life Changes, which actually landed him a record deal with Epic Records within a month. But unfortunately, he would end up leaving that label on bad terms after the release of his debut album Live and Grow. It only managed to crack number 93 on the Billboard 200 upon release, dropping with the singles Backflip that had YG on it and the track Tied Up with Dej Loaf. Now, neither of these songs really managed to take off like he was hoping, and he said that he eventually got tired of Epic Records constantly asking him to deliver hits. He complained that they weren't really helping him get the hits. But then again, that's kind of the deal you signed with the devil when you take a label deal. If you're turning in hits, they're your best friend. If you ain't, they're not going to do shit for you. But regardless of that deal going south, he continued to make music. In 2016, dropping the 4th installment of his Customized Greatly series, and then in 2017, appearing on the Wiz Khalifa mixtape, Laugh Now, Fly Later being the only feature on the tape. That was a track called Royal Highness, get it? Because they're always high. But to his credit, Young Veggies is still going strong, dropping his most recent track, Banners, on the 15th of April 2020. That came off of his album Organic that actually released last year. To be fair, it's a decent song and it's definitely not getting the love it deserves. So Odd Future fans, go and spin Young Veggies music, both old and new, and show him some love. The internet. No, I'm not talking about the soft inner netting that lines swimming trunks. One of the biggest things to come out of the Odd Future collective was the subgroup The Internet. Of course, led by Sid the Kid on vocals, along with other Odd Future members like Matt Martians on keys, Patrick Page on bass, Christopher Smith on drums, and Steve Lacy on guitar. Now, The Internet as a band actually started as early as 2011, with the band's name originally starting off as a joke, inspired by fellow Odd Future member Left Brain, who at some point seemed to form a habit of replying to the question of where are you from with The Internet. Now, The Internet's debut album Purple Naked Ladies dropped in December of 2011 and was actually the first album to be released under Odd Future Records. 2 songs from that album spawned music videos, Cocaine and Fast Lane, and their second album Feel Good dropped in 2013 with the promo single Give It Time. But it was actually their third album that ended up having the biggest impact. Ego Death dropped on June the 30th, 2015, landing them critical acclaim and a nomination for the Best Urban Contemporary Album at the Grammy Awards. And so off the back of that high and that hype, each of the individual band members capitalized and launched their own solo projects. Matt dropped The Drum Chord Theory, Sid dropped Finn, Steve dropped Demo, Patrick dropped Letters of Irrelevance, and Chris dropped Loud, before finally dropping their fourth project as The Internet, Hive Mind, in July 2018, bagging their highest chart performance to date, landing in at number 26 on the Billboard charts. Sid herself eventually announced her departure officially from Odd Future, citing the gay community being mad at her affiliation with the crew due to some of Odd Future's past lyrics being perceived as homophobic. So at this point, this left The Internet only a label-associated act and not officially as part of Odd Future, and eventually going on to sign with Columbia along with Tyler in a brand new deal. Now, unfortunately, The Internet haven't dropped anything as a group since 2018, but Sid has remained active in her solo career, in 2020 appearing on the track Urgency alongside Lil Uzi Vert from his Eternal Atake album, as well as announcing on Twitter in February 2020 that a Sid solo album was in the works. Meanwhile, Matt Martians from The Internet had released a 7-track project called The Last Party in 2019, and Steve Lacy had branched out beyond shredding Axe to produce some solo music of his own, dropping his debut album Apollo 21 with the singles Playground and Hate CD, which only went and landed him his own bloody Grammy nomination in 2020 for Best Urban Contemporary Album. So big up The Internet and all of their members that came up through the ranks of Odd Future, and at this point it's probably pretty safe to say that The Internet as their own crew have been as prolific, if not maybe even more prolific musically than Odd Future as a whole. Who knows? Now, another internet-adjacent enigma emerging from the Odd Future canon is your boy Pyramid Ritra, an affiliated member who actually linked up with Matt Martians from The Internet long before The Internet was even a thing, with Matt actually discovering Ritra on MySpace in the early days. And when those two linked up in person, they apparently got on so well that they immediately decided to start a production duo together called the Super Free, which later emerged into a duo called the Jet Age of Tomorrow. Now, funnily enough, Matt and Ritra actually claimed at one point to have missed out on a big chunk of the Odd Future come-up. Apparently, at a certain point on the cusp of the crew hitting the big time, getting evicted from their apartment in LA, forcing Ritra to move back to Atlanta. And when he finally got back to LA, it turned out that everything had already been signed and he'd kind of missed the boat. So he was part of Odd Future, but kind of not part of it as it was. And according to him on his own bio on the Stones Throw Records website, as he continued to grind, Ritra was working as a forklift driver in a home improvement store by day, recording by night and keeping his musical career secret from his colleagues like some sort of Wolfgang rapping Batman. And in an interview with Billboard, he described falling into a depression at this point, as well as deciding to distance himself from the crew, something which he would later regret. At this point, this is when him and Matt Martians continued pushing their Jet Age of Tomorrow duo, but at least the music kept coming and him and Matt Martians continued to push their musical partnership, dropping the mixtape The Super Deshay, along with fellow supposed Wolfganger Brendan Deshay, and their Jet Age mixtapes Voyager, Journey to the Fifth Echelon, and finally Jellyfish Mentality in 2013, at which point they took a 4-year hiatus from releasing joint projects, likely due to this being the period when the Internet was really blowing up, probably tying up a lot of Matt Martian's time. But they would eventually make a big comeback, releasing a debut project as the Jet Age, the incredibly titled album God's Poop or Clouds in August 2017. Just genius, just genius. And unfortunately, that would be the last Jet Age project that we would see. But that would not stop Ritra getting busy on his own. He'd been prolific dropping solo music through this period, having released 7 mixtapes and 5 EPs between 2011 and 2015. Most notably, his Indra mixtape dropping as his debut on beloved indie rap label Stones Throw, which included the track Tea and Lemonade, but had a music video where he looked like he had one eye on the lemonade stand and the other eye making a delicious cup of tea. But it seemed that in 2017, after that final Jet Age album dropped, Ritra would put his solo career into overdrive, dropping the full-length album How and 3 more full-length projects since, including one 7-track collaboration project with Redbag and a full solo album called Femme in 2019, and his most recent single called Boil dropping in November 2019. But what about Brandon Deshay from that Super Deshay project? Well, Brandon actually seemed to leave Odd Future prematurely in 2010 after getting into a feud with Tyler the Creator. Or at least that's what he wants you to think, because some have suggested that Brandon Deshay was never actually an official member of the Odd Future group, something which Tyler actually elaborated on in a long Hypebeast forum post, suggesting that from the start Tyler wasn't really fucking with Brandon, and that they fell out initially when he tried to pull a fast one on Tyler out of nowhere, trying to drop his mixtape on the exact same day as Tyler's Bastard project, as well as the fact that Tyler said that he lost a lot of respect for him once he worked out that he was stealing bars from other rappers, as well as just generally trying to finesse fame and attention off the back of Odd Future's name. For example, Tyler had recorded needed a verse for the track that would become Rest Stop Flow that ended up getting a verse from Brandon and getting released without Tyler's knowledge. And eventually, Tyler was fully done with Brandon after he spotted him on Facebook calling him out for being a fake. And though there may have been a period when these two were cool enough to be in a studio together, with Brandon appearing on the original version of the song Session, which Tyler said was the only original recording of them two together on a song that appeared on the original 2009 release of Bastard. But after the drama, Tyler took his verse off and omitted Brandon's appearance from all future releases, making it official in 2010 on Twitter that OF does not fuck with Brandon Deshay. But even after that embarrassing booting, Brandon pressed on and dropped his solo debut in September 2011, the album All About Deshay, and later on dodging OF questions harder than me dodging my Amazon delivery driver sneezes. And well, I guess it turns out that 2010 on Twitter that OF does not fuck with Brandon Deshay. But even after that embarrassing booting, Brandon pressed on and dropped his solo debut in September 2011, the album All About Deshay.
Trippy.
And later on dodging OF questions harder than me dodging my Amazon delivery driver sneezes. And well, I guess it turns out that falling out with a young prodigy who would go on to become one of the biggest rap phenomenons ever isn't necessarily a good move for the old career, is it? Because from there, Brandon would drop a couple albums, particularly Golden Child 1 and 2 in 2015 and 16, but beyond that he would mainly focus on production, with the only thing of note seemingly attached to his name at this point is a feud with Joey Badass for not paying for beats in 2019, and a few production credits with my favourite rapper of all time, Danny Brown, on his Triple X project. So where is he now? Well, not really doing that much. Turns out that falling out with talented artists is definitely not a great move. But hey, hope he's doing well wherever he is and moving forward with some slightly more positive moves. In fact, while we're there, another accused Odd Future false flagger is your boy Jack Mushroom. Supposedly being only involved with Odd Future around 2010-2011, he dropped a litany of Odd Future sounding, Odd Future looking music videos as late as 2012, appearing in several of those videos looking like somebody poured a bunch of crazy glue on Sideshow Bob and kicked him through a discount streetwear store. Hell, he even has the Odd Future donut tatted on his wrist. But despite seeming to be officially affiliated with the crew, making music videos that look just like theirs, and having been pictured with several members of the crew numerous times, he was never actually signed to the label. And during the course of my research, I've seen several conflicting reports as to whether or not he was ever an official OF member or just a devotee. But rumor has it he is actually Jasper's cousin, and technically was an affiliated member of the clique, despite not being signed or an official listed member of the rapping core crew. But then again, there was some overlap. He dropped a track with his brother, Schoolie 300, called Brotherly Love that was produced by Tyler, the Creator. But aside from spending several years just being that guy who rapped and knew a bunch of guys from Odd Future, after his Dirtbag mixtape in 2015, he seemed to abruptly disappear. But only recently he resurfaced after a rebrand as Dirtbag Jack, dropping the song Gleam in October 2019, which to be fair hasn't necessarily ran up the numbers. But then again, if you think that the video before that had been uploaded to YouTube a whopping 6 years ago, you can't hate on the man for jumping back on the old horse and having another crack at his dream. So fuck it, let's all go run up Dirtbag Jack's new tune and jump in his comments showing him some love. Now, whilst he's one of the most beloved and iconic members of the Odd Future crew, Taco contributed very little to the crew's legacy on the mic. Having only appeared on a handful of Odd Future tracks, one of his biggest involvements with the crew early on was being a part of the Loiter Squad, especially his segment on the show The World According to Taco. And from there, it was obvious that Taco's interests lie in the silver screen rather than in the dirty booth. In fact, before Loiter Squad, he'd even briefly appeared in the show Workaholics, apparently being good friends with star of that show Blake Anderson, who himself made several appearances in Loiter Squad.
Got a new cast member. He's white and he's crazy as Give it up for Blake!
And from there, Taco's entertainment industry ambitions would only continue, with him even landing work doing voice acting as an NPC in GTA 5, alongside Tyler, the Creator, who announced his involvement spectacularly on Instagram. But apparently, after things started dying down for the Odd Future crew, Taco took a team player role, devoting himself to planning and directing those yearly Camp Flog Gnaw festivals.
I turned this shit to a fucking carnival by my damn self. I built all this shit by myself with my hands. Look, I built that ride with my bare hands.
But of course, most recently, he has landed himself a starring role in the new FX TV show alongside Lil Dicky, Dave, where he puts in a solid performance and has indeed become a fan favorite. So salute to young Travis, aka Taco. You really made it happen, Playboy. Now, the story of Earl Sweatshirt is one of the most interesting pieces of folklore in the Odd Future canon. In fact, it pretty much deserves its own entire story. So if you do want me to do a video on Earl's bizarre come up, once again, hit me with a DM on Instagram at TrapLordRoss and let me know how much you want to see that. And also, you know, give me a cheeky follow while you're there, will you? Anywho, the expedited version is that Earl released his self-titled mixtape in 2010 when he was just 16 on the cusp of Odd Future blowing up. That tape was entirely produced by Tyler and it caught a lot of attention, including being named the 24th best album of 2010 by Complex, but clearly his mum was not vibing with the boys that he'd been hanging around with. Bunch of good-for-nothing prolific artists that would go on to make millions of dollars and change the music industry forever, huh? But on the other hand, Earl did claim that hanging around with these much older Odd Future boys is what got him into smoking weed and drinking lean, so maybe shout out Earl's mum, I don't know. Anywho, at this point his mum begun blocking him from making music, eventually sending him off to a boarding school in Samoa for at-risk teens, where he would stay until 2012, after which he triumphantly returned publicly, tearing down the stage with the OF Gang. And he begun getting his solo career back on track from there, dropping his debut studio album Doris in 2013, which was a huge critical success, earning near perfect scores from The Guardian and LA Times, as well as hitting number 5 on Billboard. And in March 2015, he would drop his follow-up studio album, I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside. I'm feeling that right now, Earl. That one hit number 12 on Billboard and ended up selling 30k first week, dropping with a lead single and music video for Grief that had a freaky looking negative effect, followed up by the wavy animated visual for the track Off Top, which has a pretty lit aesthetic that I must remember to steal for one of my sponsor videos sometime. In 2015, Earl started the duo The Hog Slaughter Boys with pro skater Nakel Smith, also of the Wolfgang, and despite rumours that Tyler and Earl had fallen out after that Camp Flog Gnaw incident were of course quashed by Tyler's tweets, and fortunately for the fans, Earl continued to drop music as all the Odd Future members went their separate ways. He kept himself busy with his own Red Bull radio show for a bit, eventually dropping another album in 2018 called Some Rap Songs, and an EP called Feet of Clay in November 2019, a project which he is gearing up to drop on limited editional vinyl later in 2020, go cop one of those if you're an Earl fan, as well as having just dropped the audio for Whole World featuring Maxo and produced by Al the Chemist. So salute to the young legend Earl V-Neck, I see you doing your thing, buddy.
Also shout out to the channel Hip Hop Madness, who just dropped a great video on Earl's post-Odd Future career, so go watch that and subscribe to his channel.
So you might remember from a few seconds ago that I said that Earl started a duo with Nakel Smith called the Hog Slaughter Boys. Or like Joe Biden, you might simply be wondering where you are and why this is all happening.
And to get hot, I got hairy legs that turn.
Anywho, musically, Nakel Smith is one of the lower profile members of Odd Future. He'd featured in Loiter Squad a couple of times, but wouldn't make his musical debut until the track Trash Wang on Tyler's Wolf album. But Nakel Smith had been handling business elsewhere.
So when I started coming around Fairfax, and started going to Supreme, not only am I seeing pro skaters, this is where I met Tyler and most of the people that's still my main friends today.
Yes, a pro skater first, you might have caught him in the Supreme videos for Cherry, Pussy Gangster or Bless. Being a Supreme skater was of course a big accolade, at least back in the day before it had been ruined by normies like me, who had never laid foot on a piece of grip tape in their lives. Anywho, since Odd Future fell apart, Nakel Smith of course continued doing his thing, founding his own apparel company called Hardy's Hardware, along with Tyson Jones. They even managed to bag themselves an Adidas collab, with Nakel Smith also appearing in an Away Days video for Adidas skateboarding. And on top of that, he even bagged himself a role in Jonah Hill's mid-90s. But off the board and in the studio, he was still putting in work, dropping his debut studio album 2019 in 2019, and most recently the music video for his track Lonesome, which he directed himself. God damn, this guy's wearing more hats than a H3 video. And even more recently, he was hitting the other kind of half pipe, popping up on 420-2020, aka Super 420, with Be Real on his Stinkbox, Smokebox podcast.
Welcome to the Box Kill, you know what I'm saying? It's good to have you up in here. Hey, you're a man of many hats.
So there you have it, Nakel Smith, a truly multi-talented OG that may not have gotten the same mainstream musical attention as his other OF cronies, but definitely a big winner associated with the crew, who seems to have managed to build the exact dream that he wanted to make happen. Shout out him.
I don't give a fuck. This my nigga Lucas for life, my nigga. Anybody got a motherfucking problem, nigga?
Lucas Vassetti, aka the white kid that was on the cover of the OF Tape Volume 2, who you might have also seen sucking on a toe in Loiter Squad, well, not strictly a rapper, he had actually been integral with managing the group's merch stands on tour, eventually managing Golf Wang clothing stores.
He's been here since Black Friday, so it's been like almost a month.
And according to Reddit, around a year ago was a manager in the Supreme LA store. But there's more to it than that. In fact, Lucas has even been rumoured by some to have been an early love interest of Tyler's. A lyric from the track Dome 23 from Wolf in 2013 referred to an incident where they kissed, leading to Tyler catching feelings. Lyrics that made a little more sense a few years later when Tyler dropped more lyrics on Cherry Bomb that referred to the fact that he'd been kissing white boys since 04, and the fact that Lucas Vassetti was indeed a white boy in 04. But then again, that could be complete cap, who knows. After all, in 2012, Lucas Vassetti was rumoured to have been dating Bruce Willis's daughter, and I mean, it's not like Tyler sleeps in a Lucas Blancas or anything. Oh right, fair enough. Mike G, another Odd Future member that came along in that second wave of sign-ups. Apparently, having met Tyler through Left Brain and Casey Veggies in high school, Mike was one of the more musically active members of Odd Future in the early days. Dropping his first project, Mike Check, in 2009, and then the album Ali in 2010 after joining the crew, Mike made his TV debut in Loiter Squad as Mike GSI in a CSI Miami spoof.
Looks like we had ourselves a dead body, but nobody knows why.
And while since then he's kept a relatively low profile compared to some of his other contemporaries, he has continued to drop musical projects throughout this period. Whether it's through his penchant for making chopped and screw music as part of OG Ron C's Chop Stars Collective, which if you don't know, chopping and screwing is the act of remixing hip-hop tracks into low tempos, along with techniques like adding skips to the beat, to make tracks more enjoyable while consuming large quantities of lead, or aside from that, dropping regular solo rap projects, like his Mike Check Volume 2 mixtape in 2016 that featured Young Thug and Obi Trice. His more recent Exile EP with his September 2019 music video for the track Purchase actually being the most recent upload to the Odd Future Wolfgang Kill Them All YouTube channel, but since then he has actually released another single to Spotify in 2020 called Good Luck With That, and he has also been active in the battle rap circuit, clashing with K-Philosophy in a Shots Fired battle as recently as March 2020.
My name is Mike G, legendary Odd Future Wolfgang, real name, no gimmicks, straight up, that's it.
Shout out to Mike G for keeping things moving, and good luck with that, baby. And finally, the one I know a lot of you have been waiting for, with quite possibly the most endearing fan base in musical history. Frank Ocean is possibly the contender for the most relevant artist to have come out of the Odd Future Collective, but that's not to say that Frank's career hasn't had some ups and downs. He started out as a ghostwriter before joining Odd Future, and to some it might have seemed like Frank was always destined for greatness with his pen. He actually credits meeting Odd Future as the motivation behind recording his DIY debut mixtape Nostalgia Ultra, the project that finally got the industry to take notice of him as an artist. This led to him dropping his debut album Channel Orange in July 2012, landing him 6 Grammy nominations at the 2013 awards, where he would win Best Urban Contemporary Album, beating out Chris Brown, who had actually beaten him out physically earlier on that year. From there, he would go on to drop the bizarre visual album Endless, which as it turned out was a genius finesse for him to wangle his way out of his Def Jam contract, and paving the way for him to land a $20 million bag, dropping his real album Blonde the next day. I made a video about that, go watch it, it's pretty good. Since then, Frank has continued to remain active in music, despite still not yet blessing his dedicated fans with another album. He's gone on to make music with Calvin Harris, had his own show Blonde is Radio on Apple's Beats One, where careers go to die, as well as taking that radio station into the virtual world on Grand Theft Auto 5, where people go to make others die. He featured on 2 tracks from A$AP Rocky's Testing album, the track Carousel on Travis Scott's Astro World, and dropped the solo songs DHL and In My Room on Blonded Radio in 2019. But more interestingly, dropping the tracks Dear April and Cayendo as physical-only vinyls, which although were later leaked and released properly on streaming services, at least for a period retained their artistic integrity and could only literally be experienced by the truest fans in their physical form. Which in my opinion is a very smart and interesting approach to music in the modern day, essentially clawing back control of the music listening experience by making it only possible to enjoy Frank's project in their physical form. And we actually saw a similar approach being taken in the UK grime scene recently, with veteran BBK member JME dropping his latest and long-awaited solo project Grime MC, initially as a physical CD-only release. Now I personally think this is a genius way to truly engage directly with your most dedicated fans and finally put the value back into music. So salute Frank, and I think he's going to continue to do big things. Okay, look, I'll level with you. I know there's a bunch of other non-rapping individuals associated with Odd Future, whether it's photographers, videographers, hype men, or skaters. People like Sagan Lockhart, Julian Berman, Luis Perez, who actually filmed the Yonkers, or Eddie Legohead, quite literally the first instance of a white guy taking a picture so good it earned him an N-word pass.
Jay-Z, Kanye West, Justin Bieber, Kid Cudi, and Aziz, it's a white bitch! Oh, it's a white bitch. And they got like 35,000 notes. Was Gucci in here?
But realistically, if I don't draw a line under this thing, at a certain point this video will just become a census of anybody that lives in LA and has once owned a Thrasher hoodie. Odd Future really was one of the most prolific crews to stomp their dirty old fans through the house of hip-hop, and I believe that the scene is truly thankful for their influence. It's ironic that this crew, who was so often accused of discrimination and bigotry, probably did more than any crew ever in hip-hop history to make it feel okay for fans and the next generation of up-and-coming artists to truly be themselves. So for that, I truly want to thank Odd Future, Wolfgang, Kill Them All, Don't Give a Fuck, Litter Life, Bacon Boys, Loiter Squad, Buttfuck, Bitch Nigels, for everything that they have contributed to the game. And once again, my most heartfelt apologies to all of the die-hard Odd Future fans who are probably going to pick a bunch of holes in my research and eat me alive for getting any minute detail wrong. And to them I say, well, whatever, it's fucking, I had a week to do this, took me ages to do this, so much research for one video. For one video to turn this thing around, it was long, so whatever, I probably made a few mistakes, I don't care, whatever. I need to go to sleep now anyway. Bye!
Boom! Shout out The Ridge because they sponsored this vid. Thank you so much to The Ridge for sponsoring this and the last two videos. Also, make sure you go and check out tracklaw.com for the latest Tracklaw merch. I'll be killing it with my merch, gang. Check this shit out. I don't think anyone's bought one yet, so someone cop a shirt, please. That would be pretty tight. Or don't cop one. Whatever. Appreciate everybody for being here. I want to also give a humongous shout out to the Patreon. Again, gang. That's Max Hathaway 2000, Dujuan Jones, Van Johnson, Jay, Sebastian Andres Laredo, Sean Anderson, Vampires for Hire, Roberto Rojas, Mattis Martin, Deshaun Campbell, Damien Edrington, Eric Prince Nice, Armour, Eric Fredrickson, Antonio Groza, Bash the Prince, Chris J, Claire Audion, DJ Fred 100, Griffin Fuller, Henry Bryant, Jaden Cho, Jason Wyman, Javier Gonzalez, Jessica Simmons, Kizzlebot, Naraj Shukla, Otaku VS, Penis Bag McPenis Face, Pyromancer, Vivi, and Wilson Psychedelic, as well as everybody else's names who you see on screen right now. Your support means the world to me. You
their elders to sell music to their children. The latest development from a gang of Los Angeles rappers called Odd Future, or as their aunties know them, the Odd Future Wolfgang Kill Them All exclusive, is slightly different. They're giving away their music and charging large amounts of money for merchandise. Stephen Smith was fortunate enough to be granted an audience when they hit London.
Is this the future of rock and roll? Hundreds of teenagers forming an orderly queue in order to go shopping. Maybe this is the future of rock and roll. Los Angeles rappers' Odd Future. The critics seem to think so.
Excuse the sweat, I'm trying to tone it down like Jimmy Craig. Fresh to death, and I guess we looking like the living dead.
Perhaps it's a bit of both. These are fans of Odd Future who are waiting to meet their heroes at a defunct store off Brick Lane in East London. For a couple of days only, while the band's in town, it's a pop-up shop selling their merchandise. What are you selling today? Got some jeans?
There's a hoodie with my face on it. You should buy that.
I did like all these in like 24 hours. I did like 300 t-shirts in 24 hours. So
This is done. Yeah. So what will they be retailing at today?
I think it's like 100 pounds.
Really?
Are there any washing instructions in here?
Odd Future are in the remarkable position of being a hit band who haven't sold any records, or hardly any. Instead, they've given away 20 albums worth of songs online, so the merch, as it's known, is a vital element of their income. You guys pretty tired, right? You've been working hard and travelling a lot.
Yeah, we've been doing this like every other day with these store openings and we got shows. It's hard though.
To have some type of knowledge, that is one perception. But knowing you own your opponent is a defeating bonus. I'm Zeus to opponents.
When they're not huckstering product, Odd Future record tracks that don't get played on the radio. Their lyrics are too provocative or puerile, depending on your point of view, and they have little time for political correctness. And that's what their young fans who follow them online seem to like best about them.
I'm in the air with the pigs. Little boy, don't get the seals.
They're not aggressive, they don't care what they say. They say anything they feel like, and they get away with it.
And why is that appealing to you? Would you like to be able to do the same?
Yeah.
I've had a lot worse lyrics, to be honest.
Do you think it's tongue-in-cheek, or do they mean it, or
I
is
don't
it a
mean
fake?
it. They definitely don't. I don't mean it.
Where do Mum and Dad think you are right now?
I want to take a chip right now.
Are you? And what are you studying? Urban renewal. Now, what do you guys think about rebels or sellouts? Both? We explored the paradoxes of Odd Future on stage before a recent show in London. Okay, now what about your lyrics?
What about them?
What are you saying in your lyrics?
Nothing. Shit to piss old white people off like you.
Is that right?
My lyrics aren't. I don't know. I'm sorry if I keep talking. My lyrics aren't offensive.
Are they?
No.
Some people find it offensive, don't they?
Yeah. Some people find everything offensive. Okay.
Now, what about this hard sell you do with your merchandise? Because we were in that shop yesterday. You had kids queuing up since 4 o'clock. They couldn't take a picture of you. Did you know that?
They could. Yes, they
And then
could.
you had guys saying, don't take any pictures.
He's just a hard ass.
We take pictures of most of the kids that walk into the shop.
Really?
It's just some kids want like 4 pictures and 9 autographs.
So how does this pop-up shop thing work? Is the idea that you can't necessarily make so much money from records?
We just pop up wherever we at, set up shop, slang, and make our money. We did. Ain't nobody taking no taxes from us, no cuts.
Not paying taxes? That's for rich British people. Do Odd Future pay tax or don't they?
100%.
Really?
Yes, 100%.
Check your accounts, don't they?
Anybody can. There's no marketing. It's exposing it at the right place at the right time. So when you have kids that are completely themselves, you don't necessarily market because you just take who they are and expose it, right? So it's not like a push.
Who the heck invited Mr. I don't want to cuss.
Who the heck? A collector's item clean performance by Odd Future. Haven't we been here before? Some say the band are a case of old wine in new bottles. Or maybe that's old dope in new bongs.
We've been here throughout rock and roll history. It's only really since Britpop that rock music has been predicated on this sort of all ages welcome, philosophy. Before that, it was about, to a certain degree, pitting generations against each other, and that dates back to Elvis upsetting people.
Mess around with me, and I'm gonna scratch your cat.
In that sense, yeah, Odd Future exists in a kind of grand tradition of creating out.
Right,
that's
wow.